Hello, this is Greg Allison with Greg Griggs, coming to you on the 25th of January, 2021. Time on deck is 2011 hours Central Standard Time. Now, many of you really think, many of you, especially some of you doomsday preppers, really think you'll be okay when the power grid goes down. In fact, I see in the notes quite often, a lot of you say, oh, this would be a good thing. I really hope the power grid goes down. I'm going to tell you why. Right now, the power grid loss is going to be worse, yes, much worse than a full-scale nuclear war. Greg, that's impossible. How can it be? Well, I'm about to show you. This is something that's usually come later in my presentations, and I can tell, even though I've shown it a number of times, many of you have missed it. I can see it from the comments. And this also underscores why the suspension of Executive Order 13920, which Donald Trump signed on 1 May 2020, about securing the United States bulk power system, which was rescinded by executive order signed by President Joe Biden, 13990, on the 20th of January, the very day he was sworn in, is critical. Why this is crucial. Why this puts you and me and everyone we know and the entire environment at grave risk. So we're going to, like I said, this is worse than a full-scale nuclear war in terms of radiation released. We're going to go into that. But, the good thing is I'm not fear-mongering, I'm fixer-mongering. This video is about getting it fixed. This video is about, the reason I want to bring this up is a lot of you think it's okay. If the grid goes down, hey, I got beans and, whatever else, No, it's not okay. This is why I've been beating on this for years on end. This is why I chaired 2 power grid defense conferences for this reason. It is this reason that motivates me to push this. If it wasn't for this reason, I might not care so much myself. I would care, but maybe not quite as much as I do. Okay, all right. But what you need to know is that this is part of my Eyes Wide Open and Head on a Swivel news series to help you know what you got to do to be ready so that you can survive, thrive, and stay out of the hive, which is the proposition of my channel. And I bring you these videos, and I keep bringing you more along this area so that you'll know what you have to do and what you can do to make it better, how you can participate and engage. Something most channels don't do. Most channels say, well, go hide and we'll dig a cave and you'll get some beans and bullets and whatever else and we'll be good, whatever. So, no. I'm going to take it further. Yeah, I do all of that, but I do take it further. I talk about what we can do. And of course, I do the videos, which are good to have and know how to eat from the weeds and trees. Hey, that's free. It's good anyway. It's probably better for you than the stuff you're getting out of the store, or grow your own garden, because you do need the carbs and the proteins that you can get from your potatoes and beans. So there you go. Grow your own food as much as you can. I covered that in my videos too. So check out my videos. If you're not subscribed to my channel, subscribe to my channel. Bang the update notification bell and click all so you can get all of the videos that I'll bring to you. Now, all that said, I also do bring you and offer you other special deals, which are very germane to this whole idea of prepping. And that's where we're at today, because you do need to get prepped. Even though survival of a grid down is going to be extremely tough, the more prepared you are, the better. And hopefully it won't be a nationwide situation, but it could be easily. So my friends, I do have a special right now, 25% off this good lightweight food that lasts for 25 years. This is 2 of these is a month. One of them is 2 weeks. Go to prepwithgreg.com, prepwithgreg.com, and you can get either one of these or 2 of these, about 20% off, depending on which one you get, 1 or 2. And this stuff is 2,000 calories per day. Breakfast, lunch, and dinner. Get this and you'll be a winner, because the total price on a daily basis is about 8, 11 cents, somewhere in that category. Now, all that said, okay, so this stuff, if you got a bug out, this bucket is great, especially if you're going in a boat or your vehicle. But if not, if you need a backpack bug out, just pop the top open, throw them in your backpack, and off you go, because it's a whole lot easier to store and carry than canned goods and a lot of other stuff. Last 25 years, it's fresh after 25 years, which is longer than Mountain House and those kind of things. And you can bury these buckets somewhere out in the woods. You can have a cache. That's the way to go. Cache. That's what I say. All right. But also, when you go to prepwithgreg.com, check on the logo from My Patriot Supply on that page, and it will take you in to many other prepping supplies, which you will need when it gets rough. All that said, let's go into some charts here. I'm going to show you a PowerPoint chart. You know, engineers love PowerPoint, right? So, and I have reordered this. Some of you have seen part of this before, but I have put the biggest risk factor up front, something I should have done all along. So, lock and load, here we go. Magnitude of the threat. Why worry about a mere full-scale nuclear war? Yes, it could get worse. Come on, Greg, how? Well, okay, here we go. Here is a map of the nuclear power plants in the United States. You're talking about Fukushima. Oh, no. I'm talking something more bigger than the plants themselves. Here's the wind patterns, the prevalent wind patterns. That don't mean the wind always blows in this direction. Wind blows in every direction, but that's the prevalent wind patterns, okay? Something to keep an eye on, my friends. Bing. So over the last, let me close this down. Bing. Over the past 4 decades, our nuclear power industry has produced about 85,000 metric tons of spent used nuclear fuel. Here's the site. And this stuff is clad, there's a chromium alloy known as zircaloy. They coat these fuel rods in zircaloy because steel can't handle the neutron radiation. But the bad thing about zircaloy, it will hold the pellets in place, the uranium fuel pellets. It can't stand to be in air. It will burn on contact with air. And some people don't believe that. I've got the reports to show that that's the case. The good news is these rods are 20 foot deep underwater in the spent fuel pod rule. So I'm talking about here, not the stuff in the reactor. I'm ignoring the reactor. Everybody worries about the reactors. And the spent fuel rod pulls are so bad. I'm ignoring the reactors, what everybody else worries about. What, Greg? We're ignoring the reactors? Yes. As bad as you're afraid of those reactors, I'm telling you, they pale in comparison to the spent fuel rods. So never mind, you got 100 of those reactors in the United States. Yeah, forget about it. Greg, forget about Fukushima ×3. Come on. Yes, this is worse. I got to fix this number down here. I didn't update it. All right, so that's an old number. I didn't update my charts completely here. Yeah, that number was several years old. So that my chart, I did not fully update it. Okay. So we have to protect our power grid, my friends, because all this goes up in air. If when the power goes out, you've got to pump the water on these rods. These rods, these fuel pools evaporate about 160 gallons of water a minute. The good news is we do have diesel generators. We have some backup battery power, last a few hours, and diesel generators to keep it pumping. But the bad news is, the nuclear power plants do not use the fuel, the power they generate on into the plant. Their load's not balanced. They actually take their power off the grid. So when the grid goes down, they don't produce their own power. Crazy as it sounds, that's just not the case. They can't do it. They've got to have external power. They even have to have external power to start them up. A nuclear power plant cannot start itself. It's got to have the grid to restart it. So some of us talk about black start. You may have heard me mention that in previous video. So they got to have this electric power to keep that water pump forward. Well, the reactor's got to have it too, but you could shoot boron all in the reactor that you never be able to use again. They don't like to do that, but in a real emergency, they darn well should shoot boron in those reactors. Yeah, destroy the plant, but it may save us somewhat from the plant itself. At least it stops the neutron reaction. It doesn't cool the stuff down though. You still got to cool it if you can. But it's a lot better if it's cool with the reaction stopped, right? So, but at least the power plant's got I'll show you, it's got a concrete roof over it. But we've got to have the cooling water flowing. And with the grid down, eventually the power to pump the fuel that runs the generators will be gone. I mean, you've got to get that fuel to these generators. You got to have trucks that get that. Trucks have to run on fuel. And the whole supply chain will start unraveling. These trucks require a lot of maintenance to operate and keep rolling. So what is this? 85,000 metric tons. Let's think about it. Well, a metric ton, a regular ton, a U.S. ton, is 2,000 pounds, but a metric ton is 2,204.62 pounds, because it's based on the kilogram. A metric ton is based on 1,000 kilograms, not on our pound like our U.S. tons. So maybe they've measured this in metric tons to kind of make it not look as bad as it really is. So if you assume that we have 14,600 nuclear warheads in the world, and let's go to little boy and assume based on it, 141 pounds of nuclear material per warhead. Actually, most are far less than that, but they're plutonium. So, this is not a straight, if you figure it all at say 40 pounds of fuel per nuclear warhead, if you average it out that way, you would have the equivalent of 320 full-scale nuclear wars. But this number comes out to 91 full-scale nuclear wars, just sitting around in the backyards waiting for the power to go out, to go up in smoke and contaminate your environment. Yes, many full-scale nuclear wars worth of radioactive material just waiting for the lights to go out, to go up in smoke, basically. Fortunately, a little bit of this is stored in dry cask, but by and large, the vast bulk of that is not. And I'll show you this some more on that in a little bit. So this is, yeah. Here we go, guys. Here's a little boy, and it had 141 pounds of encased uranium. And to show the plutonium bombs typically have about 5 kilograms, which is about 10 pounds, a little over 10 pounds, okay? About 12 pounds of uranium, maybe, well, maybe 14. Excuse me, plutonium. So, 2.2 pounds per kilogram base. Oh, wait a minute. Oh, some of them are down to 2 and 2.5 pounds kilograms. Excuse me. So there we go. Well, so it really all depends. It really all depends on the device, is what's going to be. But look, guys, whatever the numbers are, this is bad news. This is bad news. This is way more radiation than you would get out of a nuclear war. You won't have all the craters and the blast effects, maybe, but providing the plants don't go critical. But my friends, this is nuts. This is nuts. This is off the charts crazy in terms of radiation. Yeah, and the bad thing is this is a gift that will just keep on giving. It won't, it won't all come out at once. This is going to be spewing for years and years and years and years, maybe decades, perhaps 100 years. So, yeah, there we are. Hey guys, I don't mean to be the prophet of doom. We're going to talk about how to fix this. But here we are. This is a pool, and these are the fuel rod assemblies, not the fuel rods, but these are assemblies that they can lower and raise with a crane. This water is blue because of the radiation of the neutrons that are basically causing this water to fluoresce. Isn't it pretty? But that pretty hides a danger. Now, under 20 foot of water, these guys are not in as much danger up here. That water really stops a lot of radiation. Down here, woo-wee, that's bad news, guys. That's some bad stuff. Now, a rod is like this, and it's got assemblies of pellets in them, and the pellets look like this, and it's clad in that zircaloy cladding, and then these rods are put into assembly that can be raised and lowered by those cranes, like it showed in that previous picture. And some people say, oh, Greg, they don't burn on contact with air. Oh, yes, they do. I'm going to show you the test reports from the Sandia National Laboratories that showed that, in fact, they burn quite more than they thought they would. Holy smoke, yes, they do burn. Now, this is a power plant. See, the main reactor would be right here. The reactor is covered in a lot of concrete to make it a little safer for us, right? But the main, see how many fuel rods are here? Look at this. The spent fuel rod area is much larger and is typically just covered in a sheet metal roof. That looks like concrete, but that's not. It's sheet metal. As was evidenced here, this is Fukushima. They had the spent fuel rod pools in here. Fortunately, they maintained water on the spent fuel rods by bringing in pumper trucks because their whole grid didn't go down in Fukushima. We're talking about disaster of the type that would bring our at least most of our grid down in this country, where the cavalry could not take care of things because the whole country's down. You're not going to be able to get fuel to run the trucks even. Yeah, that was an ugly picture. Again, this is our this is a place where sites store spent nuclear fuel. That's what this is. All those dots now, they're not exact. That dot should be a little bit over here. These dots should be a little bit over there. They seem to be displaced a little bit, maybe to the left. Sounds like politics a bit of late. Yeah. Just kidding. Okay. Typically around the plant is a stay out zone of about 50 miles. Typically, you would not want to live in this area. See my video on nuclear bug out. These are areas you don't want to be in. But look, I cover also what happens if we get in a war and where the main targets are. Yeah, there's a lot of areas you would not want to be in those cases. But look here in the Midwest, around the East Coast. Yeah, a lot of people like to think the mountains in East Tennessee are great. Well, not in this portion. South Tennessee is good in areas, but not so near to Browns Ferry. See, I'm actually right about here. I'm within that zone. But where I'm going out here is not in that zone. Yeah, you see why I'm getting a place in Arizona, right? But up in here, oh my gosh, if you like to whistle Yankee Doodle, you may not be you might be a cooked noodle. So, my friends, this is pretty great. But you know what? These zones aren't exact. These zones are not exact. The heavier elements will fall out closer to the plant, but the lighter elements that are radioactive could just go all over the place. Look, we did get radiation here all the way across the Atlantic from Fukushima, although it was very low level. But if you had 104 reactors of 65 plants across America that are storing the fuel, actually, we got more sites than that total. Guys, this is a lot of sites to be emitting a lot of radiation, and it's going to really spread, especially in this area of the country, especially here and up in here. This area is going to be very vulnerable from targets up here if we get into a World War #3. Okay. This is a chart from prior to 2015, talking about, the 104 reactors producing 2,000 metric tons of highly radioactive waste every year, and how we were reaching 100% of our capacity. Didn't see how we were going to make it past 2015. Well, that's 6 years ago almost now, right? Uh-oh. Yeah, I think we have a problem. Yep. And here's another graph here. This is more up to date. Actually, this was produced in 2018-19 time frame, and so part of its projection. Producing spent fuel at roughly 2,000 metric tons of uranium per year. See, it's the same number. This came out of an Air Force report. I will show you in a moment. I'm going to go into some other, I'm going to show you some PDF files I've got on this. But you can see this is growing faster than this. They're both growing fast. So you can see that the amount has been going just since 1986, my friends. Well, we know we've been doing this for far longer than that. But yeah, guys. Woo. So eventually this converts to that. Now, one of our objectives will be to try to get that to convert faster. So we're going to talk solutions in here. We're not just talking problems, but right now this is a problem. And right now we need our grid secure, okay? Bang. Okay, here's one of those backup generators I was talking about with a power man pointing to the plant itself, putting it looks like to a filter, probably a fuel filter or an oil filter in that plant, in this engine here. Yeah, it's probably, what kind of filter? There's your starter. So there you go. There is one of the engines they use for a pump to pump water into the nuclear power plants. And yeah, so guys, our grid is literally the weakest leak in this country. We talk about cybersecurity. We think about the internet and how secure, how vulnerable our internet is. We think about our communication systems. We think about, what happened after the bombing in Nashville, how it took out cell phones and some other communications for like 300 radius miles from that location. It took out my cell phone, and what inconvenience that is. That's nothing, compared to what we're talking about here. We have fuel systems. We have different utilities that are distributed throughout this country. Well, they all require electrical power. And there's many things that can take down our grid. So we all know that a solar coronal mass ejection could do the job. Electromagnetic pulse could do the job. Direct kinetic terrorist attacks on power stations, and we believe that there's 9 critical ones that would take down an entire grid. And the Iranian Revolutionary Guard commander said, hey, we've already targeted 20 when somebody told them that. So they have sleeper cells in this country, according to him. But, hey, who's he to know such things? Cyber attacks. Oh, yeah, there's that too. Cyber attacks could not just hit the internet, but our power grid. And we all heard about the solar winds, right? And some believe that a new Madrid fault would cause such a disruption that would cause cascading failures that would fry our large high voltage power transformers that are 200 to 400 tons a piece. Those are things that are so hard to replace. That's why it takes over a year to repower the grid, maybe several years, providing you had a network working that would enable you to do so. I would submit you're not going to have that. The probability of these things happening, well, just this thing here alone, the coronal mass ejection, NASA estimates for a event the size of the Carrington event that it's about 12% per decade. Bear in mind the last Carrington event occurred in 1859, but in 1921 there was something called the railroad event, which is believed by many to be only a tenth as strong as a Carrington event, which actually, if it occurred today, would take down the grid that we have today. And then in 1989 you had another event, the Quebec event, which it's about a tenth that strong. It took down power in Quebec. Even that event or something smaller might take our grid down because our magnetosphere is dropping in field strength rapidly. That's to be concerned. But then, what about cyber attacks? What about EMP? Guys, the United States, we're king of the hill. We're a target. And there's a lot of people that don't like us. So why do we want to give our friends the keys to our back door to enable them to take us out? This is what an EMP at various altitudes. This is like where you'd float a balloon. How big of the coverage area would be? This would be from space here. You could cover all this from a satellite right here, or a fractional orbital bombardment system, or a warhead detonated very high. You cover most of Mexico, most of Canada, almost all the United States if it occurred right here. You'll move it over a little bit, you might get more of this. So, hey, I'm assuming, we assume and having in the power grid defense community that if there were an attack, that it would occur as a multi-pronged attack, that it might use EMP, kinetic attack, and cyber hacking. So all these different things and more could come into play if we were attacked. Now, the Congressional EMP Task Force had estimated that 9 out of 10 Americans would die from starvation and societal collapse, which included disease and other things, within a year. I would say, consider what we know about these nuclear power plants, you're going to lose even more people than that much sooner than a year. So, and also another thing they did not take into account with their numbers, and I did talk to Dr. Peter Vincent Pry, who was one of the key people in that study, about the assumptions made and how they reached them. That's actually covered in one of my videos with him. And no, they did not take these things into account. And he agrees that 9 out of 10 Americans getting lost within the course of a year is an optimistic estimate. It can be far worse, far worse. This is why we got to get our grid secure. This is why you don't want all that radiation in your areas, in your background. You do not want that stuff right now. Those 50-mile limits are not sufficient. Now, I talk about that in my nuclear bug out video, so bear that in mind. So what happens when the grid goes down? Well, you know, you can't pump fuel, water, your ATMs, cash registers, elevators, heating, air conditioning. Many vehicles are quit directly if it's an EMP. But, you know, they're going to run out of fuel and spare parts. They won't be able to run forever. You won't be able to keep fuel going to the nuclear power plants for the backup generators. In fact, you probably won't be able to supply fuel immediately because the truck stops that supply the fuel for the trucks to roll and bring the fuel to them will run out of, won't have the power to pump the fuel. There may be a few here and there that's got backup generators. We can keep things going for a little ways in some areas, but there's a lot of planning that's going to have to be done that's not in place right now. Of course, your bank, your credit, all that's essentially gone. You won't be able to use any of that. Just imagine what the big cities will be like. That's why I say if you live in a big city, get out. Okay. And there's other consequences in these disasters. And we found out a lot of this stuff when New Orleans got into a tight spot. Yeah, it went ugly fast. In 3 days, New Orleans was not a happy town, okay, when Katrina hit. So just imagine what happens when the grid goes down. It's going to be similar to this nationwide. Fortunately, they had people rushing in to help them out. The cavalry arrived. Well, some cavalry, I don't know about it. We're not going to have that advantage. In my neighborhood, the day after I got my initial worms to start my worm farm, we got hit by severe tornadoes that wiped out our grid for a week. But fortunately, it didn't take out the national grid, and the cavalry came. Fortunately for us. So how do you fix a power grid? Well, We can harden the power grid for the worst case event, an EMP. That's what we need to do, not to go for the solar event, but go for the EMP, which covers both, because that is one of the things that can take our grid out. Don't settle to do just one thing, do both while you're at it. Get it fixed, do it right. Do the right thing and do it right. And don't waste time about it. Why are we wasting all this time right now? That's got me concerned. Put surge blockers and Faraday cages and other hardware in the system. Surge blockers on the center tap of the transformers, those big transformers. The two things we're most worried about are the large scale transformers. That's the most vulnerable thing that is hard to replace. You also have the SCADAs, which is supervisor control computers for the grid. So there's if you protect the EMP, it covers CME. I mentioned that. We need backup means to power the water at these nuclear power plants. See, we need backup means to pump the water. And what else we might have is alternate means to get fuel to them, like a National Guard escort for the trucks, because those trucks is going to be a Mad Max world. If you do have trucks going, you're going to have to secure them so that they don't get attacked. You're not just going to be able to run, after all people are out of all their fuel trucks all over the country. If you remember Mad Max, that was the #1 target. Hey, you know what? That actually happened in Venezuela. So they will be targeted. We could have also maybe a fuel barge parked at offshore or I say offshore. Most of these plants are on rivers. On the river bank near the plant, fuel barge might be a way to do it. We're not doing any of these things. We hadn't even set in the planning for the most part to have these National Guard escorts. This is why we need to get our EMA communities involved, as suggested by Ambassador Hank Cooper with my video with him. And I'll have a link somewhere in this toward that. Also, alternate fuel sources nearby the plants that could get biodiesel to them, maybe. Other things to do. We got to get rid of these spent fuel rods. We need to get those out of these plants. So I say process the spent fuel into dry cask sooner. Dry cask them as soon as you can. Dry cask is bad, but it's not as nearly as bad as these spent fuel rods. Store cask in secure locations off plant site, somewhere else. Those plant sites were never intended to have all those fuel rods that long, because the government assured people when they started these plants that they would take care of all that, and it's not done. Now they're shutting down Indian Point in New York, and New York soon, because the federal government has no plans to deal with those rods. We developed a storage site in Yucca Mountain in Nevada, and after we spent all the money, and last penny to get that developed, Nevada turned around and said, "Oh, we thank you for all that money, but no, you can't bring them here." Wow, imagine that. Nevadans would probably be safer with those things in Yucca Mountain than they would open air, even east of them, because the stuff will come around eventually. And when you get this much material, worth many, many nuclear wars of radiation that could be unleashed in our country, you don't want that. Even out west, you're not going to be entirely safe from it. So, besides, we're talking about cast way down in the mountain. Guys, that's not so bad. Prioritize reactors that actually use the spent fuel. These are all things that we can do. Oh yeah, let's make sure that our power grid components don't have a back door that can be hacked by China, for example. Greg, what are you talking about? Well, listen, guys. Here, I'm gonna go into that in a minute. I'll talk about it here in a second. Develop resiliency into the power grid. Microgrids, home-based, low-cost solutions to fix the grid. Hey, it's not that expensive to get it started. Like the cost of a single B-2 bomber. So why aren't we doing it? We can have a bright future, but we got to secure the future we have. So let me get out of this chart and stop the share. Bang! Here we are. I'm back. How y'all doing? So we're going to go look at some of these. See, okay, listen. Executive Order 13990, signed by Biden, canceled Executive Order 13920, signed by Trump. Executive Order 13920 was about securing our grid. The reason that was signed by Trump was we have found components in our big transformers and power grid systems that came from China that had a back door in them through which they could have been accessed. Specifically, I am told there were cell phone components. For one, you don't want them monitoring our systems to know intel on it, which would give them inside advantage to hit us. Why would they put components like that in stuff they sent us? That's not for good. That speaks ill intent from the get-go that they did it. And now we're taking out the protection that we put in to protect us from that. When you consider what's at stake, that's heinous. That's heinous. That's a big blunder. That's got to be fixed. And who's behind this? Well, who was charged in Executive Order 13990 to consider after this so-called temporary suspensions, whether or not we would have an alternate executive order? Well, the head secretary of the Department of Energy and the head of the OMB. Really? Well, Department of Energy has not been our friends, because they tend to follow the industry more than they do our people. All these agencies that were set up to protect the people wind up protecting the industries instead. They don't serve you. They serve themselves. That's the problem with our government. That's what I call a deep state. So we're going to go into that a little bit more. I'm going to show you some of that. Hang on. That before I go into the actual reports. Let's do that. Let's go. Well, no, I'm going to go into the technical data here. Let's do a share of the PDF files. Give me a second here. Here we go. Here we are. I told you I was going to show you the reports that said, yes, this stuff will burn. So I had people, oh no, it won't burn. Oh yes, it will. Oh yes, it will. So here we go. So this is the report. This is a presentation on the reports from Sandia National Laboratories, as produced by Sam Durbin and Eric Lindgren. And we're going to go into this. They talk about how this started in 2003 with critics saying, hey, you've got problems with spent fuel storage. That, yeah, this stuff could burn. And so they did some analysis, and then they did some tests and found, yeah, yeah, no kidding, it does burn. So let's go into it a little bit further. It shows a boiling water reactor side on view. That's kind of looking down. It shows those test setup. They had a phase test. Zircaloy, remember that the Zircaloy name I had? Say that's the what burns in contact with air. Why? Because it is enriched from being in the reactor. They show different setups here for different fuel configurations, a uniform pattern with mostly recently discharged and some various stackings of it. Unfortunately, and then some less than complete stack-ins, and claiming that's the best situation there. Guess what? You know, remember that chart I showed you way back in the PowerPoint presentation? We were at capacity with our spent fuel rod pools, my friends. So you can bet they're packing it dense. So this is showing the test setup. They're showing the way the rods are set. There's actually a couple of different configurations for these fuel rod assemblies, which they go into here. Two different geometries here that they've shown us, and they tested these things and found out there's actually propagation of the yeah, they're showing how they're got the windows down here to watch, and got the beams, and yeah, you know, see, these things are under 20 foot of water, and as the water evaporates down, they start burning from the top down. Okay. That shows all their, yeah, you can see pictures of this stuff. This is their phase 1 test. The phase 2 test was for several arrays of propagation. Simulated heat decay. Here's your phase 2 setup with multiple arrays. Now see, they just heated the center array. These other guys weren't heated. And they tested the Zircaloy rods, but they simulated the heat from the uranium. They did not have uranium in these, because you see guys out there. And so this is what happens. And they start and combust, and combustion spread. Boom, 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 boom. See that? Look how this stuff spread. And here's the actual rods popping and ballooning out, you know, before they burn up. Thermal. And here's the final. Yeah, that's what they got. All burned up. This guy got his fist up. Yeah, look at this. He's kicking it. Wow. Well, look at that. We're burning here. Woo-wee. Man, what a mess. What a mess. That stuff burnt slap up, guys. Burnt slap up. But the reports are kind of understated. Let's see, significant depletion of nitrogen, severe thermal environment caused all pressurized fuel pans to balloon. Let's see, what else did he say? Or is it? There's one thing I'm hunting there specifically. Maybe it's another chart. Project testing successfully completed. Yeah, there's one little line I'm hunting for, maybe a different chart. Oh yeah, here it is. This is it. More energetic than previously modeled. What they're saying here is this burnt bigger and more than they had thought it would. More energetic burn than previously modeled. I've seen that in several of these charts, okay? That's the last page on this chart. Here's one of the actual scientific papers that covers this. One of many, actually. And it says pretty much the same thing in here. It shows some test setup. They don't show the pictures in this report of it after it burned up. There's your instrumentation wires coming out, sensors showing again that test setup. So this report is all about just matching the model. This is about truth in the model itself, so I don't really go into the ramifications of it per se. So the focus was on the correct prediction on the onset of the zirconium fire parameters, i.e. time and location of ignition, peak cladding temperature, and heat balances. The main objectives of the benchmark were to assess the current capabilities of the codes on the domains of interest, how to model it basically, to develop a common understanding, promote exchange of knowledge, and to draw conclusions to the possible use of the codes for regulatory bodies and industry. So, you know, this report is, you know, pretty much engineering speak. It's pretty bland, even though they had a major fire. And like I said, this report don't even show the pictures. So, let's see. It said each step of the testing improvements were made to the Melcore model to continually increase confidence in the model and validity. The final version article was used in phase 2 analysis. It was the developmental version containing features not yet available in the production version of the code. So yeah, they updated the code based on what they were discovering. And one of the things, of course, was that it burned more than they had modeled. Yeah, peak cladding temperatures and burn propagation. Let's see, where is it? I lost my place here. Burn propagation. Yeah, okay. So somewhere in this report, it echoes what it said in the other report, that indeed it exceeded their model. And so there's a lot of data here, good data. Yeah, pardon me if I don't remember exactly where every line in this report is. See, it's quite extensive. Let's see here. Yeah. For phase 2 initial Melcore results, that's their model, their data, their software, with the 2-ring model did not capture the large temperature gradient seen in the experiment. What they're saying here is they had a large temperature gradient in the experiment that their code did not capture. Well, that's why you do tests like this. Now they correct their code, I suppose. But what this says, once again, is the experiment, what they found far exceeded what they expected. Yeah, here's the Air Force report. Electromagnetic Defense Task Force from the Air University, 2018 report. They had a big conference in Washington, D.C. I was invited to it, but I needed a security clearance from work to really get into the main component, and my work did not want to send me for that because it really wasn't in line with what I do in my main day job. But in any event, so I could have went to a declassified section, but I didn't see a point in driving up just for that. I was pretty busy with trying to develop some reports at work. So this report here is what's released to the public. So the classified stuff is not in this report. I'll show you some things. The electromagnetic spectrum is a broad area of activity and characterized by physically observable activities, light, blah, blah, blah. So they're just saying they're assuming this task force. Something was designed to aid and encourage actions to recover footing where our technological lead in MS is being challenged. So they need time for bold action because they're falling apart. So this also includes EMP concerns and risk to our power grid. So it makes it, they start calling EMS, and it sounds kind of not too exciting up front. The Area University brought together leading subject matter experts from government, industry, laboratories, and academia to discuss vulnerabilities and threats, raise awareness, and explore mitigation strategies for an array of national security challenges in EMS. So they talked about the people who got from the United States, 135 military personnel, NATO. Yeah, this was I had a lot of friends that went to this. This was a well-attended event. And they had a lot of studies going on. This is supported by a lot of other research and studies, and it all came together. Conference participants found immediate actions are required to alleviate unmitigated strategic gray zones and EMS threats. And so talking about national security or status quo. So we're going to go down into that. EMS gray zone challenges can conceivably threaten our nation's survival. Yeah, we're talking about EMP attack. Gosh, we never heard about EMP, right? GMD, EMP, that's the ground missile defense. That's grid. The grid will likely remain in a failed state for weeks to months. Yeah, okay, later here it says years. Now what's it talking about here? They got real quickly concerned about spent fuel rods. This is something I brought up in my first power grid defense conference and hammered it in my second one. And when I first did this in 2016, a lot of the people in the power grid defense community were not in tune with this. But boy, they did get in tune with it now. Yes, I'm talking about the battery power, 16 hours. Not enough. Yeah. So that's what they said was in the fuel storage pools itself, not dry cask. But my friends, this was over a year ago. In fact, this is 2018. This is about 4,000 to 5,000 metric tons ago. Talk about what happened there. Come on, I'm going to go down. This is that chart I showed you. And I'm going to go down here and show you some of the other things here. I talked about what worked, what didn't work. This is optimistic. It doesn't take into account the full range of spread of the radiation. No radiation is good. So, all right, there's something here I'm looking for. I think I missed it. Okay, well, I'm going to go down to the recommendations. Yeah, there's something I was wanting to show you, but like I said, I don't always remember exactly where everything is in these things. Exercise and training realism. Yeah, that's what we need that in our exercises. Complexity, ownership. Yeah, I'm going to go on down here at the bottom. The recommendations. Recommendations. The potential for an adversary to inflict damage on states through EMS attack has grown significantly. So why don't we give them a back door to let them come in and do it, eh? Together, all aspects of society, governance, and security have dependencies on EMS. However, power grids, telecommunications, and many other command and control systems have not been designed to survive a hostile EMS environment. Ping, that's what I'm talking about, EMP and so forth, okay? And one of the things here is it talked about, you know, we need to make sure we can identify who attacked us. Remember me talking about how a sneak attack occurred from Venezuela? Where is that at? Somewhere here they talk about that. Said first line, maybe it's here. First, we got to be able to dissuade state actors from attacking us. For one, if you're hardened, it doesn't do them any good. So they're not so encouraged to attack us. Don't give them a low-hanging, easy fruit of taking us out by a power grid vulnerability, which we have right now. We need to stop this from being vulnerable. The perceived opportunity to attack without attribution or delayed attribution may allow the adversary to calculate over having an advantage and initiating hostilities. Yeah, this is what I'm talking about. So this is what happens if we can't identify who the attacker is. That's why it's important to be able to know who did it. And if it comes out of Venezuela or some hacking attack, if we got an open back door, of course, you know who the components came from. Yeah, they go into that more. There's another statement here somewhere that talks of that. That's not directly it. Yeah, let's strip on down to these summaries, things that can be done. Create a presidential point position for EMS management. Well, we kind of got some stuff going in that direction after this report. It's all been swept away. Here's what we look at here. Summary of regional level recommendation. Move spent fuel rod pools to dry cast storage at 60 nuclear sites to reduce the hazards. Okay, that's the top thing. And that was in the recommendations I had too. So there's quite a few things in here. Yeah, create microgrids. I talked about that. And so this group really took that on and was pushing this and started to do it, set up a microgrid for San Antonio under the leadership of Air Force General Stephen Quast, who Major Stuckenberg worked for. So this has got Colonel Douglas DeMaio, Ambassador James Woolsey in here also, Woolsey. So guys, what you need to know is that General Quast got removed from his position. He was told to step down. A lot of the stuff that we've been doing to get our grid hardened has been taken on by others. It's been attacked continuously. We are in a battle to get a grid hardened. Let me show you some websites now that pertain to that. We're going to do another share. Bing, 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 bing. And we're going to go in here. Bing, bing. Here we go. A second. There we go. Oh, yeah. This is a site talking about the used fuel storage by state and metric tons of uranium. So that was true as of the end of 2019. So you can add 2,000 metric tons to the number down here, a little better than I said. It was 85. You see it was almost 84. So if you add 2,000, actually it would be 86. I said 85. But then again, part of that is dry cast. So you could say, you know, probably about 64, 65,000 metric tons that is actually in the pools themselves. And the rest of it is dry cast, okay? Still, many, many, many times the radiation of a full-scale nuclear war if that stuff gets all released, which could happen, but we don't want that to happen. Here is the little part on the little boy. And here's your executive order. Executive order on protecting public health and environment, restoring science to tackle climate crisis. Well, ladies and gentlemen, having several times a full-scale nuclear war and radiation release does nothing for public health or the environment. It's right the opposite. So when you create when you let a back door in the system that can enable that to happen, wow, you just invited trouble. So let's look here. This is Executive Order 13990. So let's say a 13920. There it is. Because I had somebody tell me, "Oh, this is fake." Yeah, in a comment where I posted my previous video, I did last night. Somebody says, "Oh, this is fake. Biden would never do this." There it is. He signed this. This is the White House site. Yes, here it is on the White House site. Executive Order 13920 of May 1, 2020, securing the United States bulk power system. Now somebody said I had my title wrong. Well, guess what? I just said grid instead of bulk power system. Okay, means the same thing. Is hereby suspended for 90 days. The Secretary of Energy and the Director of OMB shall jointly consider whether to recommend an order be issued, a replacement order. Wow. Wow. Really? You realize that federal law requires that you choose components often based on cost, and the Chinese components are going to be less costly. So that immediately puts the Chinese components back in. And we've already found Chinese components with back doors in them to enable them to get into our system. So we just going to ignore that with all the risk I just showed you. And we're going to do that in the name of what? Protecting public health and environment. Holy smoke, that does exactly the opposite. Wait, hey, Mr. President Joe Biden, take a look at this, man. Look what you're doing to us, guy. Rescind this order or put out a new order and reinstate Executive Order 13920 immediately. And if you can come up with a better one, that's fine, but this order is good enough for now. And here is the public registry on the one I just showed you. And here's the Federal Registry on 13920. 13990, which is this one, is here. And here is 13920, securing the United States bulk power system. There it is. And my good friend, Command Sergeant Major Michael Mabee talked about this cyber security order being suspended. And here is one of those large transformers, not one of the largest ones, believe it or not, but look what it takes to move these things around. It takes 18 months to get one on the loading deck of your loading dock of your plant from the time you order it. These transformers are hand wound. They're custom designed for each application because the grid is not uniform. However, and we get these things from mostly South Korea and Germany. We have to get them overseas. So imagine what happens when you know these trucks. You know, you're talking about a year and a half after the grid's down. Are these trucks going to be in any type of maintenance? You're going to get fuel. What about this whole supply chain broken down? All the parts to run all this stuff broken down. 9 out of the 10 people, according to the Congressional Task Force, which is optimistic that would do this work for you, are no longer with us. Banks are, and everything is trashed. Internet's gone. How do you order this thing? How do you requisition it? How do you coordinate it? How do you get it? How do you get it produced? How do you receive it? How do you install it in an environment like that? And then you got to do thousands of these. Forget about it. Not happening. Once this Humpty Dumpty shell's broken, we're in trouble. Oh yeah. There's a lot of good stuff in here on this site. I will put a link to this in the show notes. And you can, billions of reasons we did not have grid security. Well, let me show you why Command Sergeant Major Mike Mabee is such a hero. Just click on home. This is the home page of his site here. The cavalry is not coming. Now, see, that's what I've been saying. And building reasons not have grid security, guys. Money talks and grid security walks, unfortunately. Wow, and he does cover that down in here. And he talks about how the grid is regulated. He goes into great depth in here because Command Sergeant Michael Mabee is a hero taking on things that's got to be done to get our grid secured, including finding out all the areas where it's failing. These are dockets he has filed himself with the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission to get to the bottom of a lot of stuff they have swept under the rug so that you can know what's really going on. I did a video with him about this stuff. Here's his letters to the federal government. See, he's showing it all. You talk about transparency, bang, you can see exactly what he's involved in. He puts out a newsletter, and it's great. Tells you what to do, because he's working to get it secured. Yeah, here's a video. Black Sky event. I should be in that video when it comes out. So there we are. And here's his book, the Civil Defense book. You need to get a copy of that. I've got one here. And so quite a lot of good stuff in here, including what to do. Go take action page. Yeah. Bing. What you can do. Guys, what you can do. Click the go take action page right here. Y'all remember this picture from my video cover that I did, thumbnail that I did with Command Sergeant Major Michael Mabey? He came to my Power Grid Defense Conference. There's Tommy Waller, another great patriot who's securing our grid. He's a Marine, and he runs a Secure the Grid Foundation, a coalition, which I'm a member of and participate. We have weekly telecons. And so there's a lot of things in here telling you stuff you can do. Also, bing, here's my website, finally back up. And I've got to go in and update it, but it has a lot of stuff in it. And eventually I got to rebuild this site. It's about 2 years behind. This is on my to-do list after I redo the Freedom Restoration Foundation site or get it up in my own Worm website, of course. It's got links here too to go to different things. Now, some of these are a little bit old. The Black Sky event again. Remember that? Yeah, I'll actually be in that video. I'm one of the speakers in that video. And it is quite, it's going to be quite bone jarring and interesting. I did a video on that. I did a video on another one like that. Impact America. This is a group ran by General Krosniak, Ken Krosniak. He also is a friend of mine and has been on my videos on this channel. And these are other groups. So let's stop this share. Bang. There we go. So you can go to my Power Grid site. Go to right now to Mike Mabey's Power Grid site. He's got a lot of stuff in there. And make sure you get his book. This is what to do for your community at a community level. This is community level prepping. Watch my videos for individual level prepping, right? And others. And this is not to me. Greg, thanks for working so hard to protect Alabama and the U.S. The U.S. Yeah, my work covers both. This is Peter Vincent prize book. And as you may know, I've had him on my channel a couple of times. And I'm sure he'll be back in the not too distant future. You can also find that book. I said I'm not fear mongering, I'm fix it mongering. Let's get her fixed, guys. Yeah, we have a problem. It's a very severe problem. The first thing you can do is write the White House or call your congressman and get them to put some pressure on the administration. Hey guys, you got to fix this and put in pressure on the industry. I'll give the congressional contacts in the show notes below. WhiteHouse.gov, we should be able to find something on there to contact the president. The president's address is 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue, Washington, D.C. So if you can write him a letter, I have to go check out what his email is. There's still a lot of stuff that hasn't settled out yet. I'll get with you on that real soon. But you can go to Mike Mabey's website. You can go to those contacts are laid below. But the thing is, we've got to push, one, to get 13920 reinstated. And go to your EMA. See my video with Ambassador Hank Cooper. It was listed probably prior to this in the show notes or the little ribbons that pop up in this video. He talks about how to go to your EMA leads in your state and get them engaged with what's got to be done to get the grid hardened. That's one of the most effective ways to do that job. And in fact, he has managed to get that done for the Carolinas through Duke Power by taking that approach. He's had more effectivity than anybody in getting a portion of our power grid hardened. They're on the way there. So that's something we can all do. So I'm bringing solutions. I showed you, hey, you can get stuff to help you prep. All your channels do that. And then sometimes that's what you say, oh, that's all you're about. No, I'm not. I'm about getting it fixed. Why? I've got kids. I've got grandkids. And I got big goals and aspirations myself. I may be 60, but I'm just a kid myself. Yeah, I just bought a new farm. I got a space colony to build. And you ever see my other channel, Galactic Greg's? Yeah, I've designed a whole new space colony concept. So there you go. I've got a lot to do. I need a power grid to get her done. And we need to survive. It's like I said, the proposition of my channel is help you survive, thrive, and stay out of the hive. So we can get it fixed, but we got to get going. See, I've talked about this big risk, but I've always done it toward the end of my videos or midway into them, and most people don't go that far, apparently. So I've been getting tons of comments in my videos constantly. Oh, we'll be better off if the grid goes down because too many people are doing this. Well, if it weren't for the nuclear power plants, you might have a point. But these nuclear power plants put a real bad wrinkle in this situation. But it's bad enough because that number from the Congressional EMP Task Force of 9 out of 10 being gone within a year has nothing to do with these nuclear power plants. That's the other societal decay problems that will occur real fast. And even without the nuclear power plants, that's a bit optimistic because as I've shown in my video that says the farmers will starve. Yeah, farmers will starve. I did a video on that. You see that. Most farmers are just growing market crops. They don't even have any garden to speak of. And I can show you, I'm driving down the road, passing zillions of farms in Alabama and in Georgia, and no garden here, no garden, no garden, no garden, no garden, no garden. It's just miles, no gardens. And you can go to Google Earth and look and see the same thing. Imagine that. So there you go. What you need to do is grow. Grow your own. That's one other thing you can do. Grow your own food. But, you know, watch my nuclear bug out video. There's a lot of things to do. But it's our hope that even if all this stuff does come to pass, that we find ways through our tribes and our groups to shake it off, shake the dust off at the end, and to stand back up and restart a better society. That's our hope. So you can also join my Freedom Restoration Foundation. I did have an email set up specifically for that, but Microsoft is giving some issues with it lately. So I'm going to go back and say, email me at hal5space@aol.com again. Because I don't know, you know, maybe they just don't like what we're doing. Microsoft is, I've got all this other email that I've set up through Grove Data. All that works fine. But the email I set up for the Freedom Restoration Foundation seems to have a block on it right now. I got to call Microsoft. GoDaddy told me I had to call Microsoft direct. I got a phone number. It's going to take me probably all day to get through to them. I don't know. Yikes. Crazy stuff. This times we're in. The things we're seeing has been, I'm trying to save your life. You know, you can't tell people that. Or you can't tell people that, hey, we love freedom. Wow, not supposed to tell people that. So it seems. So it seems. All right, guys. We'll say this. Hang in here with me. We'll get through this. We'll go to hal5space@aol.com below the show notes. Email me. Put if you want to support freedom, put freedom in the subject line. If you're interested in survival tribes, put tribe in the subject line. Hopefully I can retrieve those emails everybody sent to the other site. Man, it's just the stuff we have to deal with these days is just something else. And then I got some people, oh, Greg, I saw the nothing burger. None of these things ever happen. Oh, they're already happening. Why can't I get my email? So many things deplatformed. Interesting. I'm not even being political here. This is not about politics. Either side. This is just about surviving. Keep our society going. Keeping our society in prosperity. That's wrong. What? Keep our society free. Isn't that interesting? Wow. All right, so I know you watch it this far. Say, Greg, let's survive, thrive, and stay out of the hive. There we go. All right, my friends. All that said, we're going to do it. And take care of yourselves. I wish you all the very best. And thank you heartily for supporting my channel and for watching. Goodbye.